I accidentally kidnapped a kid when my sister asked me to babysit. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. So this happened last week when I was babysitting my nephew for a few days while my sister was out of state for my brother-in-law's family emergency. So I'll call my nephew Adam and his friend Max. My sister asked me to watch her son for a few days while her and her husband went out of state because his mother was hospitalized. She's fine now. I agreed because I love Adam. Adam's still in elementary school, but me and him get along pretty well because we enjoy similar things. So I was looking forward to the week. This all started when I went to pick up Adam from school. They called his name over the intercom and he came out with his friend Max. Who's this? My friend Max. Mom usually lets him come over after school. Hey Max, I'm Original Poster.
Hello, Mr. Original Poster. Is it okay if I hang out today?
Sure, that's fine. Is your mother okay with it? Max went silent for a second, but then answered,
Yeah, she's fine with it. I talked to her about it yesterday.
So off we went. We got back to the house and Adam asked me if we could go get some ice cream. I love ice cream. So the boys dropped off their bags and I drove them to the store, and I bought us all some ice cream. We decided we might as well get some snacks too while we're there. Adam and Max got excited and grabbed a bunch of snacks. So I paid and we left, stopping at the park on the way back to eat the ice cream. We got back home and Adam and Max played with Legos and I prepped dinner while watching a movie on TV. So a while goes by and I ask Max what time he needs to get home by. It's my fault I asked him so late. It completely slipped my mind. Hey Max, what time's your mom expecting you home? Max didn't respond, so I repeated the question.
Mr. Original Poster, my mom doesn't actually know I came over today.
When he said that, my heart dropped, and my first thought was, did I hear that right? I asked him what he meant, and he explained to me that his mom told him that he couldn't go over to Adam's house until he cleaned his room. It dawned on me that I basically just kidnapped a child. I immediately asked him for his mother's phone number, which he didn't know. Side note, parents, please teach your children your phone number. I asked him for his address, and he said, I live near the school. Yeah, thanks kid, that really helps. I checked my phone only to realize that the outlet I had plugged it into didn't work, and my phone was dead. I didn't know what to do, and was getting really worried that the police would knock on the door and arrest me. I calmed myself down, plugged my phone into a working outlet, and I talked to Adam and Max. I told Max that it wasn't okay to lie, and his mom was probably freaking out right now. I picked them up from school at 3 p.m., and it was 6 p.m. When my phone turned on, I saw I had 6 missed calls from my sister and 3 from my brother-in-law. I called my sister back and explained frantically what had happened. She calmed me down and told me that Max's mom had called them and asked if they had Max, and my sister answered no. Max's mom hung up to presumably call other people, and my sister tried to call me to ask if I had Max. When I didn't answer, she gave up and just wished her friend luck. My sister gets distracted and stops caring about things quickly. My sister called Max's mom and explained the situation. Max's mom came and picked up Max. I apologized for all the trouble I caused, and she told me it was fine, that the problem was solved in the end. Me and Max's mom talked for a bit about what happened that day, and she managed to calm down finally. She told me that she was about to call 911 when she got the call from my sister. So it's a good thing Max came clean when he did. Me and Max's mom exchanged numbers in case this ever happens again, and we shared a laugh over the craziness of the situation. I'm really glad she was understanding and didn't call the police on me. So in the end, it all worked out, I'd say. Yeah, that could have gone a lot worse. Thankfully, Max's mom didn't go super crazy over the situation. Sounds like she had a pretty good idea that Max would have been with Adam since that was the first person she called. He was saying something the night before about wanting to go over to the house. I will say that Adam's mom just straight up answering no kind of would have led Max's mom in the wrong direction. She should have straight up said that Adam was picked up by our original poster and that they weren't even in town. Might have gotten to the solution here a little quicker. Regardless, everything got solved in the end with minor drama. I'm sure mom was worried out of her mind there for about an hour, but everything ended up being okay. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easymode, also linked below. And don't forget to subscribe. I had been saving money for my stepdaughter's 18th birthday gift, but things changed when I needed money for my daughter's treatment. I'm a father of 2. My biological daughter's 26 and my stepdaughter's 18. I'm lucky to have established a good relationship with my stepdaughter that is based on mutual trust and respect. I raised her when she was 2. I don't even call her my stepdaughter. I call her my own. She always dreamed of owning a car and hinted at wanting a car for her 18th birthday for years. I took it upon myself to try and save up for one. It took me years to save up money to be able to get her a decent car as a gift, and I felt thrilled I was able to achieve this goal knowing how much it means to her. I haven't bought the car yet, and am currently looking for a decent one around 10 to 13K. My older daughter's been struggling with infertility, and she and her husband already tried the clinical route but weren't successful. They've stopped trying for a year due to financial struggles. I visited her last week, and she talked about getting ready to go through another round of IVF. We talked about the money, and she brought up the money I saved for her stepsister's car. I tried cutting the conversation, but she asked if she could borrow the money and she'll repay me in a few months. I said no, because what's the use of getting the money in a few months when I want to buy my stepdaughter the car this month? Her husband pointed out how his parents helped with the previous treatment costs, and now it's my turn since we're family. He said my stepdaughter can get the car anytime later, but logically the money should go towards a better cause. I declined, saying that's her last birthday with family before she moves away for college, and I didn't want to disappoint her. My daughter said she wasn't asking for a fancy new car. She just longs to become a mother. In all honesty, I stated even if I gave her money, there's no guarantee the treatment will work this time. Her husband said I had my priorities messed up, asking who in their right mind sees their child struggle with such a massive issue and refuses to help, and then prioritizes a car over a potential grandbaby that every sane grandparent dreams of having. I asked why isn't anyone else besides his parents helping? And my daughter said they'd already asked others for money, but are struggling with debt and her medication. I said, even if the treatment pays off, then what? Did she really think having a baby while struggling with debts was a good idea? She got quiet, and her husband asked that I leave. He said he wouldn't call me selfish since he knows that's why I keep getting defensive. I left without further arguing. My sister had a fight with my wife and argued with me, saying I got carried away in spoiling my stepdaughter to please her mom and neglected my blood daughter and made light of her struggles. She kept insisting I do the right thing, but I was mad that my daughter told her. Even more upset that my son-in-law wanted to talk to my stepdaughter about it and spoil the surprise. I'd like to add that I'm not on good terms with my daughter's in-laws because of how they are in general, especially her mother-in-law. But I tried to stay civil until they started insulting my wife. My wife no longer wants to be around this woman, and it's understandable. But we're getting a lot of heat from my son-in-law for how we're reacting. Am I the jerk? Honestly, everything that our original poster is saying is making a lot of sense. They literally said most of what I was thinking while reading this. That there's no guarantee that this money will actually lead to a baby. You guys have done this a couple times with no success. It's not a small amount of money they're asking for either, and it's something that's been set aside for another purpose. If they're able to pay you back in a few months anyway, why don't they just wait that few months to do the procedure? Why do they need to take away the car from your stepdaughter that you've been saving up for years to afford? I do feel like some people get a little bit caught up in the whole baby craze. These people are willing to go into massive amounts of debt and borrow money from everyone around them to try and have a baby. There's plenty of other options. You could adopt, for one. But instead, you're willing to dip into everybody's life savings around you just for a chance to have one. I can't in good conscience say that that's a good thing. Not to mention, as our original poster said, if you do finally have the baby, now you're in a massive amount of debt, and babies are pretty darn expensive to begin with. It sounds like a recipe for financial disaster. Maybe it's time to just take a step back and look at our options here. Think about how much this is really worth to you. My boss makes all of my employees do a job they were never trained for. As a result, they lost their only client and the entire business. A few years back in 2018, I had decided to switch employers. I worked from home as a chat support specialist and eventually a supervisor for a major tech company. I decided to switch to a small-time customer support agency that was just starting a new chat team. They had better pay and benefits because they only had a small number of employees compared to the former. The description of the position I was to be hired for was another salary-based supervisory role for their brand new chat team for the client. I'd basically be doing the same things as my previous job, but also spearheading this small department while simultaneously training other coworkers with zero experience in chat support. This was going extremely well, and our client was ecstatic at the results of the new chat program. They had personally sent me an email over my progress. The company I left was, and still is, known worldwide to have the friendliest and most professional customer support out of any other company. And so it was easy to apply what I had learned to this new position. After about 2 months of doing this, the person I directly reported to, the regional supervisor, was retiring. Our new regional came in and was friendly at first, but decided he didn't want to waste time on chat and directed me to phone support, which was not in my job description, nor what I was hired for by any means. He cited that the client was unhappy with the results, which was in stark contrast to what they had told me directly. Even after forwarding him the email, he still was not doing anything about it. So I complied. It took just 2 days for the client to have reached out to me personally. After explaining to them the situation, they were livid. My new regional had lied to me about his contact with the client and had essentially ignored our client's attempt to contact him about this issue. I had continued to work in the supervisory role for phones until the first quality review for my employees came up. For team leads and direct call center employees both, this is where I review their interactions and grade them based off their strengths and weaknesses. Our regional wanted me to even include the chat support team who were neither hired nor trained for phones. He refused to give them training. On every single employee who was hired for chat support, I had filed all of them as unable to be completed, and in my notations, I included that this is not the position they were hired or trained for, and thus an analysis could not accurately be completed. And I sent this to both the regional manager and our client as well, since at this point I had a direct contact email. I was responded to the same day by whoever it is within our client who oversees all of the outsourcing. The only words I got back were, "We'll deal with this." The client held a meeting the following week with my employers. I'm not sure what was said in that meeting, but word got back to everyone that the client had dropped us for breach of contract. Because this was a small office and our company's only client for several years, this was bad. After that, me and my team were offered a position with the company directly doing the things we were hired to do, but required us to move about 4 hours north. So unfortunately, none of us decided to accept that offer. I collected unemployment until I found a new job. Now the company is out of business and is currently being sued by some other employees for unpaid wages. Now, this is typically where I'd make a comment about the employer not listening to the employee even though the employee knows better. But this isn't even about the employee. They weren't listening to their only client. I don't know who decided to hire this new regional manager, but they're the ones that really tanked the company. It's almost like he was deliberately trying to sabotage the company. You don't go behind your client's back and completely change everything that was initially agreed upon. That's not a good way to do business. Unfortunately, everybody at this company had to pay for this one guy's mistake. I refuse to pay to change my father's gravestone, no matter how insulting it is. My father and mother had a very bitter marriage towards the end of his life. He had a long-running affair with another married coworker and got her pregnant before he passed. He was planning to leave mom, skip the country, and move to Canada to start a new life with her. They had a house picked out and everything. He had moved out and was living with his coworker when he suddenly died of a heart attack while sleeping with her. Divorce papers were never filed. No legal separation. They were in the process of moving all things legal, but on paper, they were still happily married. Now, me and my siblings are already out of the home. Our youngest sibling is 19 and is in college. I work for a tech company, and I'm currently back in my hometown helping my mom manage his estate. Well, my mom was hurt and petty, and marked his gravestone as in loving memory of John Doe, son, husband, father, and adulterer. My dad's family and his pregnant partner are mad and want me to fix it. I personally think it's fine. That's who he was. He was all of those things. And since it's my mom's plot, I can't do anything about it. Am I the jerk? Yikes. I mean, typically you don't want to speak ill of the dead, but considering what this guy was pulling just a few months before he passed, I understand why there would be some hard feelings. I gotta say though, leaving this on the guy's gravestone might be going a little hard. We don't know what was going on behind the scenes that made the relationship get to this point. But you guys aren't the only people that are there to remember him. And it is quite insulting to everyone else who actually cared about him to see that on his gravestone. I think this is just a little bit too low of a blow for me personally. Passenger wants to complain to me about their flight because I'm a flight attendant. Except we're not at the airport and I don't even work for that airline. I'm a flight attendant for a major airline. Several years ago, I lived in Miami Beach in an oceanfront apartment building. Several floors of the building were operated as a hotel, but it was mostly residences. The parking garage was underneath the building. Okay, you get the picture. I had just worked a long international trip and was exhausted. I got home, parked my car, and got in the elevator. It stopped on the lobby level, and a couple who had just checked into the hotel entered. The husband saw my uniform and loudly griped about their flight to Miami. "We were stuck in Houston for 5 hours and they didn't give us a hotel room," or something like that. Now, I take a lot of abuse from people who need to vent, and it mostly just rolls off my back. But that is when I'm on the clock at work. I couldn't believe I was getting chewed out in my own home about some airline thing. I was tired and over it after a 10-hour flight, and I let him have it. "You had a stopover in Houston, so I'm guessing you must have flown on United, right?" He said yes. Well, I don't work for United, and even if I did, I still wouldn't give a crap. This is where I live. How dare you get in my face, in my own home, to gripe about your minor inconvenience? I don't remember everything I said, but by the time we reached my floor, he was backed up against the wall. I do remember shouting, "Bye-bye," as I stomped out of the elevator. I used to be a people person, but people ruined it. This is a perfect example of why anyone who has to wear a uniform for their job hates wearing it back and forth to work. You will, in your lifetime, get at least one of these interactions, and it's normally enough to make you change before you leave. People seem to think that just because you're wearing the uniform, they can complain to you or ask you questions about your job, when you're just trying to go about your business and get home for the day. I understand that customer service is important when I'm on the clock, but when it's my own time, you're nobody to me. I don't owe you anything, and it's really rude of you to assume that I do. Jerk musician doesn't want to pay me for my time, except he didn't read the contract and apparently can't do math. I work in music production. I charge $125 an hour to edit, mix, and master recordings from bands, which is about half the average rate. I had a band come to me. I mixed their album and it took me about 10 hours total. 10 times 125 is $1,250. Well, at the end, they said, and I'm not even joking, but this is so ridiculous, "Well, an hour only has 60 minutes in it, not 100, so your math is wrong and unfair." I was stunned, because how can people in their 30s be this uneducated? I said, "It doesn't matter how many minutes are in an hour. I charge by the hour, and you agreed to it." They had signed a contract. Well, they left and refused to pay. This was their debut album, and little did they know, because they didn't read the contract, that I saved backups of all the work I did. And there's a clause that says my studio retains ownership of 100% of the music that I work on until I'm paid and sign the rights back off to the band. Again, this is very boilerplate contract stuff in the music industry. They had planned on selling their CDs at concerts for $20 each. I released their music free online, every site I could find, and I also knew the venues they were playing at. So I made 1,500 CDs, which only cost me about $200, but worth it for the spite. And at every gig they had, I would set up a booth with their CDs just outside of the property line of the venue. I'd give their CDs away for free, acting like an agent of the band. One thing they had also never planned on, I made the vocals on the CDs off-pitch with auto-tune. The band broke up about 6 months later after people stopped going to see them. I love absolutely legal revenge. Me and my 2 friends who had helped me had a heck of a laugh. Like, we were giddy the whole time with this all going on. It was great. Pay up or get screwed, jerks. Goes to show you guys, you always gotta read the fine print. I'm not too sure what the band was thinking going into this, but they had agreed to $125 an hour. If that's not in your budget, you don't sign that contract, plain and simple. Especially in the music industry where you're handing out your creative property, the repercussions of screwing people over like this can really end your career, as it did in this case. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.